A debate over a Confederate monument playing out in North Carolina's Supreme Court. 3 years ago, the city of Winston-Salem removed the Confederate soldiers' monument. The United Daughters of the Confederacy had claimed ownership of the statue, but refused to move it when the city asked. The reason for its relocation was because the city says the new owner of the land the statue was on didn't want it there. Now we're digging into the debate over Confederate monuments, why folks want them removed, and introducing you to someone who's doing the moving. But first, let's go to the courtroom.
The city acted without judicial process. They just came in and grabbed the monument and put it in storage and then asked the court to make us go away, saying that we had not an interest in this property.
There was a private property owner who agreed, who expressed safety concerns and said, please remove this monument. My residents are calling the police, they're calling me, they're afraid of what's occurring right outside their bedroom windows.
Now the case is in the hands of the state Supreme Court, but it could be months before a final decision. If the UDC is granted ownership, it wants to put the statue back up where it stood. The city says it wants it moved to a different location, potentially the Salem Cemetery, since Confederate soldiers are buried there. Well, the Southern Poverty Law Center says more than 400 Confederate memorials have been removed, relocated, or renamed across the U.S. In 2020 alone, the SPLC says 168 Confederate symbols were removed. Now, this was following the death of George Floyd, which sparked the Black Lives Matter protests across our country and increased the push to remove public symbols honoring the Confederacy. They also say more than 2,000 memorials are still standing. 176 of those monuments are in North Carolina, according to the SPLC. Now, one of those monuments is standing in Graham right now. The North Carolina State Conference of the NAACP is suing Alamance County and its Board of Commissioners to remove that statue. The group wants it to come down, saying it does not honor military service under the Union. The county says it can't remove it because of state law. At last check, a judge was reviewing the lawsuit. No word on if or when it could be heard in court. So just to give you a little bit more background, in 2020, Governor Roy Cooper ordered the Confederate monuments on the state capitol grounds in Raleigh be removed for public safety. His order came after protests tore down 2 statues in the area. The remaining 2 monuments were taken down the next day. At the time, Governor Cooper said, in part, monuments to white supremacy don't belong in places of allegiance, and it's past time that those painful memorials are moved in a legal and safe way. Now, going back in history, the Confederate government called Richmond, Virginia, its capital city more than 150 years ago. Up until about a year ago, the city was home to a 21-foot-tall monument to Confederate General Robert E. Lee. Today, the man contracted by the state to take down that statue is sharing what he and his team went through to do it.
It's just special. It's just a very, very special moment.
The removal of Richmond's Confederate statues is described as special for many people, but for Devon Henry,
I know I did something that was right, something that needed to be done.
that moment in history takes on even more significance.
And I just remember coming over the bridge on Arthur Ashe Boulevard, and I'm looking at the statue like, you're coming down today, buddy.
That's because Henry and his company were contracted to make it happen. The city tasked them to in the summer of 2020 under then Governor Ralph Northam's orders. But accepting the project wasn't an immediate yes for Henry.
There's nobody else willing to step up.
He was told he may not ever get business again. He also feared for the safety of his team.
I knew at that moment that if I didn't do it, they would probably still be up today.
So they took on the task to remove all the statues. 2 years following the first removal, Henry is reflecting on that first moment.
The words I use, let's go make history. Let's go do something that no one else has been able to do in the former capital of the Confederacy.
One by one, over the course of the next year and a half, his team faced more than just the grueling challenge of removal.
Someone tried to run us off the road. We're talking about 60,000 pounds of stone on a truck that somebody tries to run you off the road, waving a Confederate flag.
But he found that the hope people had for a new history outweighed the hate.
For all of those folks that do that, right, there's 100 behind them on the other side that says, thank you.
As the community reflects on the realization of Henry and his crew's actions, Henry says he hopes that this will remind them that this is just the start to social justice.
There's so much more work that needs to be done. But if I take a moment to just reflect, it feels really good because I know that my kids can say, yeah, their granddad did something very special.
Now, folks who support keeping Confederate monuments standing argue that they are important reminders about our history, that they teach people about both sides of the Civil War. While some people may want the monuments removed and destroyed altogether, a large number of people argue that they should just be moved to places like museums or cemeteries where Confederate soldiers are buried. Well, wherever you stand on the debate, these monuments do depict a moment in the United States history. What's next for them? Still to be decided.